What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tinkerverse. So today I'm out in the shop, and I'll have to apologize ahead of time if my air conditioner kicks on. I do live in Southwest Florida, and it is rather hot this time of year, so when I'm in the shop, I've got to run the AC. But I want you guys out here to take a journey with me, and we're going to redesign or remake the custom boxes that I use, or the custom sleeves that I use when I sell and ship my high-end fountain pens for F3 pens. To this point, I have done these on the Cricut. I no longer want to use the Cricut. I don't like the Cricut. So we're going to redo this in LightBurn, and we're going to set it up to cut out on a laser because it's just so much faster and so much easier. And yeah, stick around. Let's get to it. All right, so what you see on screen is LightBurn. This is what I'm intending to make, and what I have is I've got a two-piece box. I've got an outer sleeve and an inner sleeve, and they slip over each other and form a long five-sided tube. So let me start this from scratch, and we're going to bring up TemplateMaker.nl. So if you're not familiar with TemplateMaker, get familiar with it. It is an awesome resource for being able to design your own packaging. They've got everything from basic gift boxes, bags, all kinds of fancy, designs. Just about anything you can think of. If you'd want it, for a gift box, you can probably find it here. They've got pill boxes, all sorts of different shapes. So it's a really cool resource. So definitely check it out. But what we're going to be focused on today is, and let me find it. I want, there it is. Okay, so I want the polygonal box with a lid. And I'm going to click on the image, and I'm going to customize this to what I want. So I'm working in millimeters, and in this case, I want an inner diameter of 17 millimeters. I want 5 sides. I want so the inner sleeve I want to be a little bit longer so that it's easy to grab and separate them. So I'm going to make the inner sleeve 150. Let's go 150. Lid height's fine where it is. Clearance is fine where it's at. So the rest of this is pretty much what I want. Fit to drawing and resolution 72. So this is important. You want the resolution to match what your LightBurn import resolution is. So resolution 72 is your default unless you've changed it. If you're more familiar with working with Adobe Illustrator, you might have changed it to 96 or whatever it is. So just make sure that the resolution here matches what you're comfortable with in LightBurn, 72 being the default. And I'm going to change this to SVG. So all things being equal, lid height. I want my lid height to be 130. So I want that to be slightly shorter than the box itself. Okay, so what that gives me is it gives me an interior sleeve that is 150 millimeters long by 17 millimeters diameter, 5-sided, and then a 130 millimeter outer sleeve with a 5% clearance tolerance. So it automatically calculates the clearance so that these two can slip together. So from here, I will just click Create. And this is going to create an SVG for me, and I will get this saved. Okay. All right. So that's all we need from TemplateMaker. Now we're going to come back into LightBurn, and I've got a new file, and I'm going to import. So Control I for import, and let me get to the right directory. Okay, and I'm going to import. So it imported a lot of noise, so this is going to take a second to do some cleanup. So first thing we want to do is grab everything, and we're going to ungroup. So I'm going to use Control U to ungroup, and I'm actually going to do that a couple times because there's a couple different nested groups here. So now that I've got it ungrouped, I can start highlighting the noise and deleting it. So you can see that it comes with a bunch of text and just various logos and stuff. So I'm going to delete everything that I don't want. Okay, so that leaves me with my 2 sleeves, almost. Okay, So we've got our two sleeves. I need to focus on these one at a time because I'm going to be making them out of two separate materials. So right now I'm going to focus on the inner sleeve. And what I want to do is, I know I'm going to be cutting this out of cardstock. So I'm going to create myself a template here. And just for ease, I'm going to, let's see, unlocked. So width is going to be 8.5 inches. Length or height is going to be 11 inches because I'm using just a general US letter size. And I'm going to move that to the template layer, and I'm going to move that to the lower left corner of the screen because that's where I want to index these for repeatability. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and I know that the orientation is going to be this way because when I run these, I'm going to run, I think I can get 3 at a time on a page, so I'm going to stack them 1, 2, 3 on top of each other. But for now, let's focus on getting this into the right settings that I want. So first things first, let me grab, so notice that there's some broken lines here that I actually want to be united. So I'm going to turn off this interior blue ones, and I'm going to grab all of this, and I'm going to go to Tools, I'm going to go to Edit, and I want Auto Join Selected Shapes. So when I do that, that joined all of these together, so now they're all one solid shape. And it's a closed path. And then I'm going to move that to layer 0. That's my standard default cut layer. Okay. And then let me bring back in the blue lines and turn off the outer. And I'm going to take these and I'm going to move them to layer 2 because that's going to be a score layer. And I'll set that accordingly. Okay, so now what I've got is I've got my cuts and I've got my scores. And so in terms of order of operations, for now let's get this out of the way. I'll do that last thing because I want to be able to save it and then come back. Okay, so order of operations, I want my score to be first. I want my cut to be second. And the reason this matters is because I want my pathing. I want this to be calculated out so that it doesn't cut out the shape first and potentially move it before it runs the score lines. And since they're both lines, I'm just going to go ahead and tell it what order that I want them done in. So now I've done some testing, and we'll run through that in a second here. But I did some testing, and I know that I want my cut to be 2,500 millimeters per minute at 90% power. And then my score is 3,000 at 50. So yeah, that's right. Okay. So let me turn that back on, and I'm going to group these together. There we go. So that essentially does it. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just dump this to a tool layer for now, just so that it doesn't impact anything. I'll move it in here so I don't get warned. All right, so now the way that this is set up, I should be able to look at my preview here, and it's going to run my score lines, and then it's going to run my outer cut. All right. So here we go. So I'm going to index my white heavy-duty cardstock here into the lower left corner. Get my laser going. I do have the focus set, so I'm focused right to the top of that sheet of cardstock. And let's make sure that we are homed. Frame it just to make sure that we are good to go, and let it rip. Okay, So I've got it set because white actually, the way white reflects, it requires a touch more power than some of the other colors. But in my case, I've got this dialed in pretty well that it just kind of pops out, no problems. So there's the inner sleeve that we're going to take a look at what the how to assemble that a little bit later in the video. But there's my score lines, so my bends happen relatively easily. You can see. And all right, so now we're going to move on to an outer sleeve, and I'm going to do that out of a darker colored cardstock. Now the only big difference here is that the darker colors don't take as much power to burn through from a cardstock perspective. So let's save this. This is going to be now, if you're doing this all out of one sheet and you don't want the two separate colors, obviously you can do all this in one cut. But because of the way that I'm doing this, I want two different colors, so I've got to change my settings between, or change out my material and actually my settings in between. 5-sided pen sleeve, 17 diameter, inner. Okay, so now let's move on to the outer. So I'm going to take that out of here, and I'm going to bring in this one. Okay, and it's the same process. I'm going to move everything to let's see, move everything to layer 0, and then close this. So edit, auto join. Okay, and then bring my frame or my tool layer back and grab all of this. Actually, grab all of that. Move that to layer 2. Group it. Okay. Reset my cut orders, and that should do it. The only difference is I really do want to dial back on this. So let me save this. Okay, so for this one, we're going to go 3000 at 30 for my score. And 2590. We'll leave the cut the same. The cut will be aggressive, but it's okay. The big one was the score. I didn't want my score to cut through the material. So that should be what I need here. All right, glasses on. Glasses on. Here we go. Done. So you'll notice this will drop right out. Again, the darker colors don't need as much power, so I don't have to kind of punch out the perforation. And there you go. So there's my two sleeves. I did forget something on this. I'm going to remake this real quick because I forgot to add my logo. Okay, so for the inner sleeve, or I'm sorry, the outer sleeve, I'm actually going to bring in a logo here, my logo. Okay, so I'm going to bring this in, and I'm going to shrink that way down, and we'll put it in the middle. Middle one, somewhere about here is good. Let's go a little bigger. Okay. So now, because I'm going to fold this inside out, I'm actually going to invert that. So just come up here, grab that, and I'm going to mirror it. Okay, and it is a cut, so everything's good there. Okay, so this one's ready to go. Let's do it. All right, and because of the dark color, it'll drop right out. It didn't need nearly as much power as I was giving it for the cut, but that's okay. It was the score lines that I was worried about. So there's what that looks like, scored, and then that's the side you're going to see. Same with this, that's the side you're going to see, and they're going to end up sliding together or something like that. All right, so the way assembly works on these is actually pretty straightforward. So I've got this little Scotch permanent tape roll that I use because it's nice and easy to roll down the flaps that need to be glued. I did 3D print myself just a little tool to make it easier to wrap them and get the sizing consistent every time. This is not required. You know, the way that the laser scores it, if you did it right, you can bend these by hand, no problem, or use a ruler or any flat edge. I like to use this because it's sized the right size for my sleeves, and it guarantees me a consistent glue every time, nice and straight. And then ultimately this will be housing a pen similar to that. So let's get cracking here. Okay, so pay attention to your sides. In my case, you can see the score lines here. I don't want these to be visible, but I am going to initially fold them and get that crease in there. Okay, so I just kind of did a preliminary fold to make sure I'm getting the crease right. And then I'm going to make sure I'm the right side out. So my score lines that are burned are going to go on the inside. And then I'm going to use this little calendar. It was an old Father's Day calendar that I've got a lot of pages left on. And they're nice pages because it allows me to glue up on here without using my work surface and getting glue all over my work surface. So I can take this and run this like that. And then I'm going to take my little tool here that I 3D printed, and I'm going to wrap that around, and I'm going to just do a little of that, knock off that little bit of excess glue that spilled over, and there you go. So there's the inner sleeve. The only difference is, and I'm going to use that flat in there to fold these down and then glue that top. Okay, glue that down, and there we go. So there's the inner sleeve. Just clean up the last of that glue there. Okay, now the outer sleeve's much the same way. The only difference is I'm actually going to flip this around and leave this on here. And the reason I want that is because this is slightly larger, and so when I go to roll it, I want to make sure I'm rolling it to the right size. So same thing, make sure you got the right orientation. I want my score lines to be inside so they're not visible. Do a quick preliminary fold just to make sure I've got all my creases nice and even. And then I'll take this. Yeah, that's right. Take this, run my glue down that way, and then repeat the same process so that it folds nice and neat along the outside. And then same for the top. Roll those over. Get my glue on there, make sure I use a little bit extra to hit all those individual flaps. And that's it. Take that out. Now normally if I was inside, I've got little cotton balls. I'll drop a half a cotton ball in each side of there just to protect the edges. But once I slide it together, there you go. So we just went from the TemplateMaker to LightBurn to my Acmer P2 little 20 watt diode laser, and we created my own custom packaging for F3 pens. Just like that. So hopefully you guys got a little bit out of that. I just figured I needed to do this anyway and wanted to take you along for the ride. So, you know, feel free to ask questions down in the comments or make any suggestions you want. And until next time, thanks for hanging out with me.